So yeah, I'm the founder of Treacle7. So my name's Daniel Hearn. Set up Treacle7 approximately 5 years ago, and it was set up really to help organizations in need of high impact, low cost content. So my background, I have 25 plus years. God, makes me feel really old. In the advertising industry, started way back in the 90s in Saatchi and Saatchi. So most people do know, if they're not into advertising, most people have heard of the agency Saatchi and Saatchi. I think they were more famous than the brands they were making famous back in the good old days. I think that was the 70s and 80s, but the 90s were pretty damn good as well. So I originally started in print production, working on accounts like the Currys, Dixons, and PC World. If you all remember those brands, I think Currys is still a thing, but Dixons and PC World aren't. And kind of, yeah, worked on that for a few years, and then just kind of got a bit bored with print production and wanted to get into the moving image side of things. So I got into the TV department and kind of worked my way up there from sort of PA junior production through a junior producer through to senior producer, exec producer. I then switched from agency production to post production. So I went to work at a company called The Mill, originally in Soho, now sort of north of Oxford Street in Fitzrovia. But again, if you're not in the know, The Mill are probably the most awarded commercials, post-production and VFX company, I'd say, in the world. They've got a huge global footprint now. I say commercials, they are well known for their commercials, but back in the late 90s, going into the early noughties, they were commissioned to work on Gladiator, the Ridley Scott film, as he had a stake in The Mill at one point. I can't exactly remember when. And so a film division was set up back in about 98, 99. And The Mill became the first UK VFX company to win an Oscar, which obviously everyone was extremely pleased and proud of. So sort of fast forward several years in a couple of sort of small industry tech startups I've been involved in. I wanted to get back into production. The world of contents exploding. So I saw a real opportunity to bring my sort of big brand experience of the last 20, 25 years and apply it to startups, SMEs that were just sort of beginning their journey. So Treacle7 was set up kind of unlike a traditional production company. We're more a collective. I've had the real sort of good fortune of working with some amazing people over the years. We're all that little bit older, copywriters, art directors, directors, animators, sort of strategists, planners. And what I wanted to do, as and this was pre-pandemic, is set up a collective. So where, like I say, where I've worked with some amazing people, we're all that little bit older. We're not really working in, for companies anymore. And again, remembering this is pre-pandemic, I wanted to set up a collective. So there's a core 8 members of Treacle based in London, and then dotted all over the country. We have, like I say, our strategists, our creative teams, directors, and as and when a brief comes in, we just assemble the right team to pitch on that brief. And if we win that brief, then again we assemble the right team to execute that brief. So why Treacle? It's not letting me move. Sorry. So why Treacle? So sort of 5 pillars, 5 obvious pillars. Accessible. We are where you are. We've, like I say, we're based in London, but we've got teams all over the country. We're very agile. We can quickly create and deliver bespoke content. Reliable. I mean, we've worked. When you work at places like Sargis and The Mill, they are or were the very best of the best. So, you are on call 24/7. That's what we did. That's how we became good at what we do and how we became famous. Affordable. Lean production methods means we can offer great pricing and very strategic. So comprehensive planning to align your creative goals. So I'm just going to sort of quickly run through the services. Again, I don't want to take up too much time and I won't sort of read all this verbatim, but we offer obviously strategy and creative, so we can tackle any brief. We have production teams up and down the country. Coming to, we've got a roster of directors. We've got a roster of DPs. We've got art directors, and obviously the wider network. We have very brilliant and trusted sort of crews up and down the country, whether that's from runners to makeup artists to gaffers to focus pullers, anything and everything we've got, and we've worked with a number of years, so tried and tested and very trusted. Animation, we have a roster of animators again sitting at their workstations ready to jump on a job. We've got some very talented 2D artists, 3D artists, illustrators. Post-production, obviously I spent a lot of time at one of the best post-production facilities in the world, so again we've got a roster of high quality VFX and CG artists and color graders. Audio, I'm going to talk about TV and radio, but audio, we part own a sound studio at the top end of Tottenham Court Road by Warren Street. We've got 12 studios there. So we can offer voiceover casting, voiceover recording, sound design, music composition, and obviously radio creative and music supervision. Now, obviously, a lot of TV commercials over the years are probably more remembered by the track that accompanies the commercial, whether it's a TV, a radio, cinema commercial. So we've got a team in place that license music for again, library music used to be a dirty word back in the day, but during the pandemic, lots of fantastic artists were just making music and sticking it on library. So library music is one, very affordable, and two, really bloody good these days. But if you do have a brand that's got got that ambition and budget to or want to use a famous track or look to re-record a famous track, then we have the guys that do this all day every day for the big brands. They know the rights holders, they know the publishers, they know the music companies, etc., etc. So we can negotiate on your behalf and try and get that track for you. Yeah, radio creative, like I say, our team over in Tottenham Court Road, our audio partners, they are also now Spotify's mandated radio creative arm. So, and I'll come on to that in a bit when I talk about addressable TV and radio, but pretty much every ad you hear on Spotify, if you're not a premium customer, is written by a member of our team. And digital, yes, I'm talking about TV here and radio, but we do a lot of social first content. And it's just become the norm now. Years ago, when you finished a TV ad, people would say, can you also make us this version for social, for YouTube, etc., etc. But now that's just a given. You shoot everything, you frame everything as if you're going to deliver a TV ad at 16:9, but then you shoot everything 9:16, 1:1, 4, etc., etc. So, delivering additional assets at the end of a job is just a given. Cool. So I'm just going to pause it there. I was just going to play our latest reel. Hope you don't mind. It's about 90 seconds long. Just showcase some of our latest work. But fingers crossed. Here we go. So there's a few examples of our work. You'll see there's some, very recognizable brands like the Detolls and the Itsus, and lots of brands that you just wouldn't have recognized. People that we've taken on their sort of first journey into content production and onto TV for the first time. So I wanted to talk a little bit about TV and radio, in particular today, because I think people do think it's scarily expensive and not very easy to get on them, on those two mediums. And it used to be very expensive, and it still can be very expensive, depending on the size of your campaign, and and what the creative idea is. But what we kind of specialize in, if that's the right word, is sort of that sort of low cost, more affordable, taking a brand on its sort of first steps into content production, and then looking where they want to advertise. So a few obvious stats about TV. It is where brands go to build fame. In 2022, we watched 2 hours 41 minutes of broadcaster TV each day. BVOD, which is broadcaster video on demand, represents 28% of all broadcaster TV viewing for 16 to 34-year-olds, and TV advertising accounted for 84% of the video advertising we saw each day in 2022, and 50% for 16 to 34-year-olds. Radio, again, offers short lead times and relatively low cost production, making it ideal for promoting tactical advertising messages at short notice. Now, obviously, radio, the audio space is really quite popular at the moment. You get broadcast radio, you get digital radio, DAX, you get Spotify targeted addressable for Spotify, Acast, and obviously you have podcasts. So broadcast radio stats. The latest Rajar results demonstrate the popularity of commercial radio was 38.1 million listeners every week, which is up 3.6% year on year. The two biggest, obviously, radio broadcasters, Global, entertaining 26 million people across the UK every week, and Bauer has a total audience for the last quarter of 21.6 million. Digital radio, or DAX, 30 million people in the UK listen to digital radio each week. 46% listen on smartphones, 2 hours spent daily with their favourite channels, and 11 million weekly listeners to podcasts. And then I want to talk about addressable. What you've seen in the last few years, Sky launched their AdSmart platform back in 2014. So targeted advertising, addressable advertising for TV radio is now much more accessible to virtually any business. AdSmart from Sky, if no one's heard about it, it's like I say, it feels like it was only launched yesterday, and some people don't even know about it. I've heard about it, but it allows you to select working with Sky, obviously, allows you to select the exact audience you want to reach, and your ads only play out when they're being watched. So it's reaching just the households that matter to you and your business. AdSmart makes advertising on TV much more affordable. You can now advertise on TV. Campaigns can start from as little as £3,000. You only pay for your ad when it's being viewed by your audience on AdSmart from Sky. So they've got to watch at least 75% of an ad for you to be charged. And obviously, AdSmart have the data so they can measure how your campaign's working. Again, addressable on the audio space. 38% of the UK population now use Spotify on a weekly basis. Non-premium Spotify users will be served all advertising across audio, digital, and podcasts. Spotify has the largest weekly reach compared to any other weekly podcast platform. And obviously, audio is available now on mobile, tablet, desktop, web, and things like the PlayStation. And just at the bottom there, Acast, 25,000 plus podcasts now available, and 60 million plus UK monthly listeners. TV, radio, cinema is heavily regulated. It's why the biggest and most trusted brands advertise on them, TV especially. But with that comes heavy regulation and compliance. So when you're writing a TV ad or a radio ad, you have to abide by what's known as the BCAP code. So in the UK, broadcasters aren't allowed to show their TV ads that haven't been cleared by the governing body, which is called Clearcast. The same applies in radio, the RACC, which is the Radio Ads Clearance Centre. And for cinema, you have to clear with two governing bodies. Well, one, which is the CAA, but if your advert is public information broadcast, you also have to get a BBFC certificate. And these processes can take up to a few days. I say 1 to several weeks, a few days, and then I say several weeks. That's being quite conservative. I mean, we're currently working on a pharmaceutical brand, and that's been in the clearance process for a couple of months now, because you're relying on the brand having all the data to back up any claims, and this is where that heavy regulation comes in. Obviously, you're not allowed to advertise to mislead consumers. So I just wanted to sort of finish up with a few case studies. This is a company we were introduced to by a media agency. They're called You're Unbelievable. They're a super porridge. They came to us with no idea what they wanted. They just wanted to get on TV. They had a media buyer get them excited about getting on TV. And this actually wasn't an addressable. This was on linear. So they came to us with a brief, make us an ad, show the world what we do, how good we are, and let's see what happens. And I'll play the ad now. But following this TV commercial, they topped the Amazon porridge category charts, outselling the likes of Quaker. So successful.
Trying to supercharge your porridge the hard way? Enter Super Porridge. This is no ordinary porridge. Forget foraging for extra toppings. We've done the hard work for you. We've loaded 25% of your bowl with superfoods, nuts, seeds, berries, and more. All the texture and flavour you'd expect from plant-based whole foods. A mighty-sized bag with 28 nutritious bowls and only 72 pence per serving. So it's healthy and affordable. Super Porridge includes vitamin B6, which supports the reduction of tiredness and fatigue, and thiamine, which supports the normal function of the heart. It's also a great source of protein and high in fibre. It's speedy to prepare. Simply heat on the hob or microwave. You can even sleep on it for on-the-go overnight oats. And with Super Porridge, you pay nothing for delivery. Visit yourunbelievable.co.uk and order your organic Super Porridge now. Breakfast never tasted so good.
So a second case study, I'm not going to play everything because I know we're conscious of time, but this was an interesting one. We were approached by a company called Affordable Mobiles. You go on your website and you can buy a phone. After we got awarded the work, we then went into the first lockdown. So it's quite, we didn't know what the rules were to shoot. We didn't know we were allowed in locations, studios, etc., etc. And actors were all actors, famous, non-famous, big and small, were needing work. And when we cast for this, we actually got, you'll probably see it on the left, that we got Ewan. Oh God, well, I can't think of his surname. But he was Keith, the accountant from The Office, and he was just perfect. We never in our wildest dreams thought we'd get someone like him turn up. Anyway, he did. We cast him. He cost next to no money, which was fantastic. And this ad just went viral because Office fans around the world just were sharing it. It just blew up. It was incredible. So much so that they had, I think it was around about 300% uplift in sales. So much so that they came back to us the next year with a much bigger budget. And again, if I was to play the next ad, you'll see that the production values kind of big dance scene, Bollywood dance scene, lots more cast, etc., etc. What I will do obviously is share this deck with the guys and make sure that all links click through to the relevant work, so you can see there. One last case study. This is an interesting one because this is where you can really go to town with not much money at all. So we were approached by a small restaurant chain, literally small. Had a couple of outlets in sort of, I think, the Hounslow area. They had been spoken to by AdSmart. They got very excited that they could be on TV, didn't really know what that meant. They were doing a small sort of local targeted what they call geo-box targeted campaign, where they were spending that minimum £3,000. They came to us saying how much will production cost, and it's kind of well, how much is how long's a piece of string, how much money have you got, sort of thing. Obviously we're a small business. We're just coming out of lockdown. We haven't got much money. And we said, look, have you got a lot of assets? You're a restaurant. Looking at your website, you've got lovely shots of food. And they said, yeah, we've got an absolute ton of assets, as most businesses have these days. So we said, look, share it with us. We'll take a look through it. We'll write you a script, get that script approved by you, get that script approved by Clearcast, and then we use all your existing assets, so saving huge amounts of money by not having to shoot anything, reproduce anything, and we'll tell that sort of 30-second story, because that's where they wanted to go. They wanted a 30-second TV commercial going on AdSmart, just targeting local, people to come to their restaurant that was local to them, and again, just bring it to life with a voiceover, some music, some graphics, etc., and this is what it is.
Veggie food is boring. Do you happen to experience Vegology? Feast on a flame grilled quarter pounder. Pleasure your palate on a pepperoni pizza. Stone baked. Want bursting with flavour buffalo wings? Or full-on fish and chips? Vegology has the food you crave, all completely meat-free. For breakfast, lunch, dinner or delivery, discover amazing vegan and vegetarian food at Vegology. Order with Uber Eats or Deliveroo, or book your table at our 2-floor licensed restaurant in Hounslow.
So that production, as it were, using existing assets, editing down from all their footage down to 30 seconds, getting it cleared with Clearcast, compliant with broadcasters, voiceover casting, voiceover recording, adding music, adding graphics. We charge £5,000. So for £8,000, they had a TV commercial and playing out on 100+ channels on Sky, in amongst some incredible, content on Sky, in amongst, ad break, in amongst some of the, the biggest brands in the world. And then, because I've spoken a lot about TV, this is just a recent campaign we've done for radio. This is Billington Sugar. This was produced for the King's coronation, and we worked with a small advertising agency called Ourselves. And voiceover, I'm sure you'll recognise, was the brilliant Matt Lucas, who, like I say, was absolutely brilliant.
It's no ordinary bake or everyday creation, so use only the best. Billington Sugars, the cake deserving of innovation. The sponge shouldn't be dry, nor sink in the middle. Let's make it delicious. It's really quite simple. So whilst the oven warms up, full of anticipation, choose Billington Sugars. They always rise to the occasion. Oh, you just can't beat a slice of cake, can you?
So just quickly, the last few slides. As I mentioned earlier, we've got a roster of directors, 10 directors now that we represent. And again, all these, if I send the deck, you can click through and see all their latest reels. A whole bunch of reels here: commercials, reels, animation, CG, VFX, color grading, sound design, music. A ton of recent work. I mean, I could sort of update this every week. And lastly, just some 4 testimonials here. A couple of from Brands Direct. So very sure. We work with them pretty much on a daily basis now. We've shot 62 commercials in the last 2 years. We are their go-to production company. They write the ads, they do all the strategy, the creative and media buying in-house. We are just their production company. Synergy Car Leasing just were a smaller brand, and going on TV for the first time on AdSmart. McCann's, I'm sure everyone knows or has heard of McCann's. If you know ad agencies, they're a big global IPG owned agency. And Uncle Sunshine, just a small independent boutique agency here in London that we work with. And that's it.
Daniel, that was fabulous. Thank you very, very much. We'll just take the screen down so we can see everyone. Any questions, anyone, from what we've just seen and heard from Daniel? I'm sure there's got to be a question. Oh, Paul.
Sorry, I was trying to raise my hand back. I had to do it the old-fashioned way. Yeah, thank you very much for that. Very much appreciated, Daniel. I'd like to find out some more. We were talking about these local test campaigns with the restaurant Vegology.
Yeah.
I'm very interested. I'm from a creative background myself. I'm quite interested in the media angle and TVRs, the targeting and that kind of stuff. It's not relevant for me right now, but it could be in the future in terms of how I test audiences and get out there. So one, did I miss this? Do you do media planning and buying as part of it? Or do you outsource that to other people? And would you like to have a conversation at some point offline as well about this?
I'd love to
obviously share the information out with everyone, but I'd like to know more about the media, who it's reaching, repetitions and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have a conversation aside, Paul. So please do reach out. I'll link in with you. But yeah, media buying. No, we don't do it. I mean, we work with a ton of media agencies. We tend to work with the smaller, sort of boutique media agencies. We get a lot of introductions from them. Right. They're doing their job, approaching brands, and then whatever the brand's ambition is, whether it's a social first campaign, TV, radio, then they pull us in, and we get the opportunity to meet that client and hopefully pitch and win. We don't win everything, but we have a lot of opportunities to pitch. So no, we don't do the media buying. If a brand comes to us and then we sort of upsell, that's the right word, and say, look, have you thought about TV, or have you thought about this? Then we will introduce them to a media buyer. Or if they've got an interest in Sky AdSmart or Spotify, then we introduce them to Sky or our audio partner, who are called Forever Audio, which is the the studios. So AdSmart works slightly different to linear TV. So as you mentioned, TVRs, AdSmart works on impressions, so very much like a digital campaign. And I think around about 500,000 impressions relates to one TVR. So you can work it out that way.
Okay.
But it's kind of bought differently. So if you are looking to do a targeted addressable campaign with Sky, you will get given you're introduced to a Sky rep. They will sit down with you and your client and work out who the target audience is. And Sky buy in, as I'm sure Spotify do. Sky buy in, so God knows how many data sources, and then obviously they can then target households through their own data, because obviously if you're a Sky customer, then obviously they've got your data and they know your household, your affluence, But then I think through MasterCard, through Humvee, all these different data sources, they buy this data and they can target those households. So linear, obviously, I think you can, like on ITV, do smaller campaigns, but linear tends to be you just go nationwide, and there is a lot of wastage with Sky. There's the idea is that there's very little wastage because you are targeting those households. And when I say Sky, but Sky and Virgin have collaborated on this, so it's not just hitting people with Sky boxes, it's also hitting people with Virgin boxes, but it's only hitting the Sky and Sky owned channels, which are including the UK TVs and Channel 5. So obviously you don't hit the Channel 4s and ITVs. They're probably the only two sort of big channels you don't hit.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Paul.
I dropped my LinkedIn down there as well, Daniel. So if you want to reach out, that'd be good. Good to speak to you, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Nergis.
Thanks very much, Daniel. That was really insightful. And I was keen to kind of pick your brains a little further about, obviously we're all founders here. My remit is startup land and startups in mind. I wanted to pick your brains about accessibility. I know you touched on this before of, you think TV and radio advertising at megabucks, almost like it's not touching distance for smaller businesses, right? And just wondered sort of what your tips and insight would be for a founder. Certainly they'd have to be of a certain size and a certain point in the journey, but when is that point that they should be thinking about this, could be thinking about this? How should they prioritize this into their strategy? Like I said, I feel like one of the big things is that accessibility, or no, that's nothing to do with me because I'm just a small business. So, what would you say to someone that's kind of on the fence or not sure about this world?
I mean, I would definitely put it into your, strategy as early on as possible, because, it really is accessible now and affordable. When I was working at the likes of, the Sarches and the Mills, I was obviously, there was a whole strategic team, creative team talking to that client way before I was, introduced. And obviously, back then you are only talking to, big blue chip trusted brands and ones that are obviously doing very well and had the money to go on TV. But I think these addressable platforms now are allowing everyone, the opportunity to go on TV. I mean, a lot of really good case studies that Sky have come come out with, and we've worked on a few of those campaigns. It's like, I mean, Veg Ollie is a good example of a small, local brand, but we do a ton of work now for local authorities. Targeted campaigns for things like foster carers in the community. So we've worked with probably about 10 local authorities now: Kent, West Sussex, Barnet. So we've done sort of fostering commercials and adoption commercials, because you can now target a small group of people in a local area where it's near to the children, so you're not taking children too far away. And so there's been a real success story there. We've done a lot of work for emergency services, so police recruitment campaigns, fire service recruitment campaigns. So it doesn't have to be who you think it is. Like the Nikes, the Apples of the world. Yes, they're going to do it and spend tons of money, and we don't work with them. We can't compete with their big agencies or their internal studios. We set this up purely to work with startups and SMEs. We've been very lucky that through the work we've done, it's been recognised, and a few bigger brands or agencies have come to us, and we've managed to produce commercials with bigger budgets. Fantastic. But I really like working with the founders and bringing them on a journey from the start, and I think they kind of appreciate you more, because they're hiring you because you're the experts, where if you're working with a big brand, big agency, there's lots of people involved, and you're sort of brought in just to say the production outfit. But when we work directly with brands, we're that the strategy creative piece as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nuggets. Daniel, it's been fantastic this morning. Really good. Wesley, you did have your hand up. Did you want to ask Daniel a question?
Oh, you sneaky person, Ollie. You saw that. I thought I got it down quickly. It basically was, I really did think I got away with that. It was really just, I think you answered it anyway in your video, and one of the other questions that came in, the first question kind of was covering it. But I was wondering, what's your sort of starting lead? It's about $8,000. Is that what you said? There's a sort of.
Well, I mean, I don't want to shout, obviously,
it's just an idea to have an idea, because when you're thinking, I mean, it's not something we could do now, but it's something that maybe on the line done in my thought pattern, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, what budget do we need to even consider?
Yeah, we sat down with Sky originally about 3 years ago, and this doesn't apply to Sky exclusively anymore, because you can go on ITV you can get on Channel 4. They're all doing different things. They've all got different initiatives out there, getting people on TV pretty for fairly low cost. But our sort of entry level, whatever you spend with, say, a Sky or an ITV, that we don't get involved in there. But all I can say is that an entry level into Sky for a small targeted campaign is £3,000, so it's quite cheap. It's relatively cheap. And our sort of entry level package, if you do have existing assets and we think they're deemed good enough to one, be broadcast quality, and two, tell a story with, then we sort of that entry level of £5,000, and for that we write a script, we record voice, we add graph, we sort of bring it to life, get it cleared for broadcast or radio. I guess I talk too much about TV. We're talking about radio as well. Radio's again slightly cheaper. Production for radio.
I mean, I've done radio. We've dabbled with radio, just playing with it, just when we wanted to get some beta testers, which actually was, to be honest with you, we did get them. We wanted in a particular sector, so we went with a particular station that was online actually, but it achieved what we wanted to do, which was good, and it didn't cost us too much money. Now, I was just trying to get a round sort of figure. I know, so you're sort of saying from your point of view, depending on content and everything else, yours is sort of like 5K upwards, and then. You reckon potentially a small campaign from £3,000 is possible, but realistically, if you were doing, you wanted to make some sort of impact, what really do you sort of think in your mind you need? Something like 20, 25, 30 grand?
I would have thought so. I think if you've got, again, I'll probably stay clear of the media buying side of things, because again, I'm no media buying. I don't really know how it works.
No.
But to make something really, with some really high production values, and you can then start shooting live action and or sort of CG animation, you're probably looking at 20 up, which again is still relatively low cost.
It's relative for what you want. I mean, it's relative for whether you're trying to build a brand, whether you're trying to build brand awareness or bring customers in or whatever else. So it's just something that it's nice for me to know in the back of my mind, what we're looking at. So that was what Ollie kind of saw me put my hand up and put my hand down, because I pulled away from that. But thank you for answering that. That's been brilliant. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for that, Wesley. Well, that's been really good, Daniel. Really enjoyed that. If you can get the slides over to me and Lee, and then we'll share them with the startup stand-up community, that'd be really, really good. Well, thanks once again. You're going to get a lot of love on LinkedIn today and everything besides. So, yeah, thank you very much, Daniel. It was really, really insightful and interesting. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, Ollie. Really appreciate it.